2021, Ford gave the F-150 a little bit of an upgrade. Well, quite a few things were changed around. Now, this specific one is the 22 F-150 XLT, and it's specifically got the 302A package as well as the Sport Appearance package, which is why it's got a little bit more of a meaner look and no chrome in the vehicle whatsoever, which I think kind of looks pretty nice. Now, a few other things about it. This specific one has the 3.5 liter EcoBoost engine, so the more powerful engine. It's 4x4, and it's also the SuperCrew configuration. Because the XLT is technically available in the regular cab, the Super Cab, or this thing, the SuperCrew. So which way you go is going to depend on what features are important for you. Like I said, the XLT 302A is kind of the sweet spot. It has a ton of options that are available, a lot of standard technology, there's some optional things you could look at. It features Ford's new Sync 4 media screen. Now, this is going to be a walk-around on the truck. If you're looking for some stuff on the technology, so you want to know how to use the Sync 4 screen or navigate the instrument cluster, the steering wheel, things like that, check down below, and you can also find the build link for this specific vehicle. There's no mistaking when you've got an F-150 with the Sport Appearance package coming at you. It's got a black painted grille, all of the chrome on the vehicle is gone, and it's painted body color. It does a few things that are special inside, but we'll get to that one in just a second. But this thing does look great. I always love the look of that black appearance package instead, which was brought back for the 2022 model year. Now, it is late availability, so if you want that black appearance package, you're probably 3 to 5 months or so roughly before you end up getting it, unfortunately. But if you want it, you can get it inside of the XLT, which is amazing. Now, a few things. This thing does have two tow hooks in the front, and it does have our LED lamps as well as some fog lamps down below. And whether you get the fogs and other things are going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in, but overall, the front end of this thing looks incredible. As we shift to the side of the vehicle, we do have a number of different options for the tires for the F-150. The XLT base is going to have a 17-inch tire. We've got the options for 18s up to these 20-inch tires that we're looking at. Series of different styles for not only the rim, but also for the tire choice. So whether that's going to be an all-terrain versus a typical all-season tire instead, you have a few options that are available. But overall, great, very similar to the 21 styling. We've got all of our different rocker moldings, body moldings, and things like that. Because this is the XLT, we do have our F-150 XLT badge right along the door for both the driver and the passenger side. And we've also got our running boards here. Now, the running boards are going to be available in the F-150. You can technically get it aftermarket as an install if you want to, but because we're in the Sport package, we do have those running boards that are going to be black instead. So black platform boards. If we don't have the Sport Appearance package, that would be a little chrome running board instead. So you've got a few options for the styling and how that looks. Along the side view mirror, we do also have our blind spot system, so it lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. Taking a peek along our driver's side door, we do also have a 5-digit number we can use in order to be able to unlock the door. We can also press the bottom 2 buttons in order to lock the door if we need to. We've got intelligent access, so we lock the door here or there, and we just slide our hand in without the key fob on us whatsoever, so we just lock, unlock, etc., which is super straightforward in order to be able to do. But taking a peek, tons of different options here. So taking a look on the door, we can just kind of make it out, but it's got like a little bit of a map there. And that's the same for the first and for the second row. Little highlight, which is kind of neat. We've got our basic controls there as well. So our unlock lock buttons, window control, side view, and then our windows up and down, side view mirror control, I should say, window up and down. Door handle, little storage tray, more storage. And then, if we take a look, so we've got a nice kind of silver highlight there. We've got all sorts of highlights that kind of move throughout the entirety of the vehicle. But a few things to point out along the side. We are going to be a manual telescoping steering wheel inside of this specific version of the vehicle. We've got our zone lighting on the outside of the trunk, so we can easily toggle these lights on or off as necessary. We can lower our tailgate as well if we need to. We've got our bed lighting. We can adjust what's going on with our running lamps. And we can also increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. We also do have our parking brake, so we can pull to turn it on, we hit the brake, and we push to turn it off. A bit further down, we also do have our hood release, so we're going to pull that in order to pop the hood. We'll get to that in a second. Because we're in the 302A version of the truck, we also do have our power adjustable seats. So it's forwards, backwards, up and down. We can adjust the backrest, and then we can also adjust the lumbar support power by pressing one of these buttons if we need to. But we'll get to the front end styling in a second because we're going to take a peek underneath the hood. So if we look right underneath right above the Ford badge, I should say, we do have a little latch there. So we're going to pull, lift, and here she is. The F-150 has a boatload of options that are available for the engine. Unfortunately, in the 2022 model, the turbo diesel engine, so that 3-liter diesel, is no longer available. So if you want a diesel engine, you're gonna have to look at the F-250, unless you can track down a diesel at a dealer for a 2021 model. They are a little bit challenging to find though. The XLT base is going to have the 3.3-liter V6 engine, but this specific one has the upgraded 3.5-liter EcoBoost engine. So power-wise, it's amazing. This thing can push out 400 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. We do have the option for the Power Boost engine, and then you've got the F-150 Lightning, but that's its own complete animal, which I haven't seen it yet. So once I do, I'm definitely doing a review on that one. But this thing overall does look nice. Easy access to the battery and the wiper fluid. Easy access to some other fluids, and unfortunately getting to the oil, a little bit tricky. Like, I'm 6 feet tall and I can just kind of almost reach it there. So if you like to change oil yourself, you could do it just being on a stool to get to it. But overall it is nice. It is a little bit more challenging to get to the lamps. So if you need to change those yourself, you may have to go through the dealer unless you just want to rip these things out yourself and do it. Up overhead, we do have a little fire shield along the top. And then you can make it out just right along the top of the actual engine. We do, or the motor I should say, we do have our EcoBoost right along the actual cover itself. Up and down she goes. First for the F-150, this thing is amazing. It's spacious. The seats are super comfortable and bouncy. Now, this specific one has the XLT Sport Appearance Package, which means that we've got a unique cloth bucket seat. We do have the option for different seat choices and different color interiors and things like that, just based off of how we have this thing configured. Now this thing, because it's got the XLT Sport Pack, means that we've got the dual captain's chairs with this console in the middle instead. And one of the cool things about this console, it can not only open up this way, but this is the first time I've seen this in an F-150. Oh, it's got this work surface area. So literally first time I've ever seen this thing in person. I'll show you how it works in just a second, but I love this work surface area. But overall, first impressions of this thing are great. I love what Ford did with the 2021, how they upgraded to the Sync 4 screen. And we do have the option for our engine start, stop, delete, which we can get directly from the time of ordering at the factory. If you want a little bit more of an in-depth look at the steering wheel, that cluster screen, or even the Sync media screen, like if you want to know how to set up Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, things like that, check down in the description below because I've put together some crazy comprehensive videos on how all of these things work. But let's look at some of the basics. So our stick on the left-hand side is going to control our front windshield wiper. Well, we don't have one in the rear, so it's just the front windshield wiper there. And the steering wheel itself is going to be a manual adjust by our left knee. So it's a telescopic wheel, which is definitely a nice thing. And lift that back up very simply. Now, we do have a ton of different options as well. So this specific one just has our regular cruise control. We do have the option for our adaptive cruise control system instead, but this specific one doesn't have it. But the adaptive cruise is like your regular cruise on steroids. So the adaptive cruise is your set it and forget it cruise. So you set it at a certain speed, it's gonna hold that truck at that set speed. So it's an amazing system. But we've got some basics here. We've got our volume control. We've got a voice command prompt, which actually is kind of neat because if you're hooked up through Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, you can press and hold that prompt in order to use your Siri or your Google Assistant. So it's an amazing system there. We've got a pad on the right-hand side, which is going to let us navigate between this cluster screen. So all sorts of different pages and options and things like that with a lot of flexibility. We can change between songs and radio stations, answer or hang up on a phone call, all that fun stuff. Now, I do love all of the small highlights. Like we look at the very top of the dash, it's got like a nice like carbony type of feel. It's like a waved feel to it there. It's kind of neat. We've got some gray and silver highlights all throughout the dash, wraps all around into the side of that passenger side there as well. It looks amazing. Now because we're in the 302A version of the vehicle, we're push button start. Fire it up there. Built Ford tough, looks amazing. It's great, great all around. But we've got our base mode, we've got an accessory mode, just depending on whether we hit the brake before we start the truck up. But a few things, the 21 brought some changes to the backup assist and a few other things. So one of the cool things about having the trailer tow package means that we've got our Pro Trailer Backup Assist. So rather than counter steering the steering wheel the direction we need the truck to go, we literally just twist that knob and the car will do everything, well, the truck will do everything for us. So it's amazing. We have a lot of different options along the screen itself. Because this one has the auto start, stop, delete, we are missing that key button, which I think that's amazing. I love the fact that we've got the flexibility to get that removed at time of ordering from the factory. A lot of other things to take a look at. We do have our camera button there. So we've got a reverse camera. We don't have this, well, this specific one doesn't have any sort of 360 cameras or anything like that, but we do have different options available. We've got our 4-way blinkers there. Traction control system, easily toggle that thing on or off. Series of different options for our audio, navigation, favorites, and a number of other things. We've got a features button, which is amazing. We've got some different options for driver assistance. This specific one has our smart hitch, which also has onboard scales. So the onboard scales is great because we can literally figure out exactly what we've got inside of the bed of the truck. So we can figure out how close we're getting to our max payload capacity. So it's a brilliant system, and I love the fact that we've got this thing available as an option. We can switch between kilograms, pounds, whatever the case may be. But overall, great functionality inside of this. And like I mentioned, we do have the option for factory navigation. We can run off of our phone if you want to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, whatever the case may be. But overall, this thing is amazing. As we start to move down a tiny little bit, so we've got a lot of other options here. We've got our integrated brake controller. We've got our 2 high, 4 high, 4 low mode. And specifically because this is the XLT, we do not have the 4 auto mode that we're going to find inside of some of the other trim levels of the vehicle. We've got our drive mode selector there, so we can easily adjust what drive mode we're in as we go. I always say it, my favorite is going to be the sport mode. It just hangs onto the gears. It's such a nicer experience overall. We've got our volume rocker there, so we can easily adjust our volume. I turn the audio off by pressing that button. So we can easily adjust our volume. We can tune this way. We do have our settings button, so we've got a hot button press to get to our sound. We can easily change out whatever media source is going on, so we can easily adjust through that as necessary. We can turn the screen off if we want to, so our calming screen, blank screen, back to life again. Change between songs or radio stations, or let's say, so we're on audio, we can also just do a press and hold in order to be able to seek this way, or we can just do a single button press in order to seek that way instead. So quite a bit of flexibility. Moving down, we do have dual zone climate control inside of this thing, so we can easily turn on, adjust as necessary. Basic controls for our climate on top of that. We can press this button in order to have it go to our windshield face or feet. Close that out and it will automatically go away. We've got our heated seats. Heated steering wheel would be an option inside of some trims of the vehicle, but we're in the XLT, so this thing does not have that as an option. We've got our base fan control settings there, so we can easily adjust as necessary. And then moving down a teeny little bit more. So a few other things to point out. We do have 2 USB ports in the front there, so a USB as well as a USB-C, which you can't see because of the shifter. Down she goes. So as you can see there, we've got a USB, USB-C port. We've got a nice amount of storage space in the middle there on top of that. And we also do have a little part in the middle that's fully removable, so we can get rid of this rubber tray if we want to clean this thing out. Now we do also have the option, so you can see park, reverse, neutral, drive, or we can go into our manual mode. So we do have some buttons just to the left-hand side of the shifter there, and we can easily adjust what gear we're in as we go. We do have a little storage area there, a few cup holders. One thing about the cup holders is that these things are fully removable, so we can literally take this thing out if we want to. And as you can see there, there's a little hole inside of the one that's a little bit closer to the armrest. And one of the benefits of that is, let's say if your key fob has ever died and you need to start your truck up, all you're going to do is just insert your key fob there, and it will recognize and be able to start the vehicle up that way. So if for whatever reason your fob's died, you need to be able to remote start, or you need to be able to start the vehicle, we can get emergency access to it by opening this thing up. We just insert that in order to get inside, and then we just pull this up, drop our key in there, and we'll be able to start the vehicle up that way instead. So it is nice that we've got so much flexibility inside of this thing. And then this specific one also has the interior work surface area, which is the first time I've ever seen this in a truck, and I love it. It's my precious. I feel like Smeagol right now. This is amazing. So this thing works great, looks great. If you're in your truck all the time working, definitely recommend this option. It's in Canada, $400 through the factory to get it done. Could you do it aftermarket? Maybe. Good luck trying to find it though, because these things, limited availability right now. So just save yourself the time, get it directly from the factory. You might have to wait a little bit longer, but at least you get the features that are important for you. But one cool thing about this is that it's also lockable. So if you've got some things in there you want to kind of hide, you've got the flexibility to do it. We've got a removable tray. We've got a ton of storage space in here and 2 more power points. So there's another USB and another USB-C. So literally power points all over the place. So if you need to charge a bunch of devices, you can easily do it. Now, as we start to move up, because we're in the 302, we do have an auto-dimming rear view mirror. We do have our base control for our lights, and we do have a power sliding rear window. So we do actually have to press the button. It's not a one press open and close, but it is nice to know we've got that as an option. And up overhead, this specific one does also have the sunroof, so we can easily open and close the shade as necessary. We can vent out the roof. You can hear it closing. Down it goes, and we can easily open it up. We can stop partway, whatever the case may be. Sunglasses holder, typical Ford styling. We do also have our visor, vanity mirror, no lights built in on this specific one, but we can take this bad boy and extend it out literally all the way to block all of the sun, which I always love it when trucks have that available as an option. It always blows my mind when I get into the second row of the SuperCrew, because there is so much space back here. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall. And like, I have a ridiculous amount of knee space, great amount of foot space. And up overhead, I've got about 3.5 roughly inches of head space here. Now, a few things. This one has the sunroof, which means that we lose a tiny little bit of overhead space. Not a ton, but I mean, at the same time, like, I'm 6 feet, a little bit wide-shouldered, and I can comfortably fit back here. If there were a couple more of me, you'd be able to comfortably fit back here as well. If you don't have more versions of me, if you got some little me's or mini U's or whatever the case may be, front-facing, rear-facing car seats, definitely not a problem in the second row. We've got a few anchors, latches, whatever the case may be, so you can tie down front-facing, rear-facing if you need to. But overall comfort and styling, this thing is great. Now, this specific one, we're in the XLT Sport Pack, so we've got this sport cloth, as I mentioned earlier, but we do have options for different things. Now, it's kind of neat because you could look at the F-150 Tremor instead, which when you get into the 402 gives you leather. Oh, so nice. Or you could look at the Lariat, go up or down, whatever the case may be. But overall, this second row is amazing. There's a ton of space back here. If we look at this configuration, because we're in the XLT Sport Pack, I mentioned that we just have the armrest, so we've got 5 full seats in the SuperCrew, and then we've got some right in behind the driver passenger seat. We do have a few pockets there. Moving down behind the armrest, we do have a 12-volt power point, as well as 2 USB, so a USB, USB-C, as well as a 400-watt power plug in the back. So a ton of power. There's one in the front, one in the middle, one in the bed, so you can power things up all over the place inside of this vehicle. But I said overall comfort and styling is great. We've got grab handles on the driver passenger side in the second row. We've got some hooks over the top, and we do also have some lights that we can control on the inside ourselves. The styling of the door is great. We've got some nice highlights along the side. That same kind of like map highlight that we've got along the door, we have it literally along all 4 doors, so it is something nice and subtle. We do have some cup holders along the passenger second row doors and some bottle holders a little bit further down, which is definitely a nice thing. But overall, this thing is great. Comfort-wise is good. Seats themselves have a pretty decent amount of cushion, I gotta say, so I wouldn't mind being on a distance trip here. There's some pretty neat features in this truck. So along our passenger side, we can literally pull this tab and we can lift up, and we've got a power inverter. So power inverter right underneath the seat there, so that's always going to be there no matter what. On the driver's side here, if we were to pull the tab along the seat, we can crank that up and lift this thing up, and as you can see, even more storage space here. So it is amazing how much space is actually back here, but this is just going to be the base storage that's available. We do also have the option for our partition lockable storage. It extends out to about here, and then we can fold it down, lift it up, whatever the case may be, as necessary. But a ton more space when we've got that option. So whether or not you decide to get that or not is going to be based off of you. You can get it at time of ordering directly from the factory. And there is a lock along the seat as well. So it literally will lock the seats down. So if you're transporting certain things, you've got the capability to have this thing locked down permanently if you need it. Now, if we look just along the passenger side there, so we do have another one of these little tabs. So if we pull this, we can fold that part of the seat down, and just along the back, you can just kind of make it out, but we do have our spigot, and we also have our jack there. So if we ever need to change the tire ourselves, we've got the flexibility to easily be able to do it. Now, filling up fuel inside of the F-150 is very straightforward. So along the driver's side, we've got a capless system. Just insert your fuel hose, fill up, and you're good to go. If you ever need to use a jerry can to fill this thing up, just along the passenger side in the second row, we can fold that down to get access to it. And then looking at fuel quality. So the horsepower and torque specs across the entire Ford lineup are achieved using a premium fuel. So do you need to use one? Absolutely not, but you definitely will notice a difference in the horsepower and torque and fuel economy when you do. And there are a few other caveats to that. So if you're using the vehicle to go off-road or under heavy load, ideally you want to use a higher quality fuel instead, like an 89 or 91, and that's going to be ideal. So do you have to do it? No, but it is technically better for the engine and all the components if you do. Towards the back end of the F-150, really nice look. I kind of love the fact that this thing is painted all body color. My personal preference would be the darker blue instead, but unfortunately you can't get that blue with the XLT Sport Package. I don't know why. I think Ford should just open that up across the board for paints. Here nor there, you can't get it unfortunately, but it does look nice. Now, a few things. This is the 302A version of the truck, so we do have our reverse parking sensors. We've got a reverse brake assist and a number of other great features that are going to be included. Now, we do have the option for different tow packages and things like that. We've got our base, just the receiver, we've got the actual tow package, and then we've got the max trailer tow package. Because towing is literally all over the place inside this vehicle, like literally all over the place. You're like 5,000 pound minimum, like 14,000 pound maximum, depending on how the truck is configured. So if you're not sure how the truck should be configured based off of your needs, check down in the description below because I've put together a crazy comprehensive video on choosing the right F-150 based off of your own personal circumstances. Because towing is one thing, but payload is another. You technically should, after you hit between 5,000 or 7,000 pounds, depending on your engine, be using a weight distributing hitch. If you're pulling a trailer that's a little bit heavier, you technically should be spreading that load a little bit differently. But payload, as I mentioned, is a completely other factor. Because we look at, let's say this specific one might have a payload of 2,100 pounds or whatever the case may be, if it was completely stripped down with no other options. But when we look at the 302A package, we add in the sunroof, we add in other things. Every little thing that you add in is going to take away from the payload. And that even counts if you're pulling a trailer. So let's say if the tongue weight of your trailer is 500 pounds, then all of a sudden your payload drops by 500. You throw a couple of full-size adults in there with some cargo and you might be kind of creeping up to your max payload capacity. So you've got to be very careful number-wise with what you go with. And that's going to dictate whether you go for the max tow package, looking at different max payload packages and things like that. So it's going to depend on what you need. But the best way is looking at the Ford tow guides, watch that video I've thrown together, but also reach out to a Ford dealer. Find a rep that you love working with so they can really explain everything that you need to know about towing payload based off of your own scenario. Because the best thing to do is to get a little bit more versus having not enough. Because the last thing you want is to spend all this money on a new truck to pull a trailer that can't pull it because you haven't gone with the right configuration. So lots of things to think about here. But the back end of this specific truck looks great. We've got our Ford badge that's kind of pushed in, or F-150 badge I should say, that's kind of pushed in. We've got our EcoBoost badge along the bottom right, backup camera as always, and then we've got some zone lighting in the back on top of that. We also will be able to find our mini spare tire just underneath the vehicle, and we do have a little key right along the side. So we would actually just use the emergency access key on the key fob. So we would just pull this thing out, and we're just going to insert, twist, and that's going to unlock so that we can get access to that as well. Now we do have the option on the key fob. We could double press a button on the fob in order to be able to lower the tailgate. So it's this one here. We can literally just double press that in order to lower down. Or just right underneath the backup camera, there's a button there. So we can literally pull that, down she goes. So very, very simple. Now, we do have a few different options for the tailgate directly from the factory, which is amazing. We have the option for a tailgate step and then that work surface area in the back. So if you're a construction worker and you're going to be working off of the tailgate, you've got that option. So it's got measurements and things like that. So you can see exactly where you're cutting, because one of the cool things, we also have some clamps along both sides. So we can literally clamp down wood in order to make the most ideal cut. Now on top of that, one of the cool things, we also do have a bottle opener on both sides, so you're, unpacked at the end of a hard day, pop a beer, whatever the case may be. Now, a few things. This specific one just has the base power, so we've got a 400 watt inverter just along the back side. We do have the option of upgrading that to a 2 kilowatt hour instead, and then when you get the power boost version of the F-150, you can go up to a 7.2 kilowatt hour battery inside of this thing. So it's an amazing amount of power. You can literally use this thing as a generator, specifically when you get the power boost version of the F-150, but it is amazing. We've got our box lighting along the back, so we've got a button along the top there, or along the side I should say. That's going to turn on our various box lights. We've got a few different cleats and tie downs and things like that. So the option for up to 8 total tie downs inside of this thing, which is amazing. Bed dimensions for the truck are going to be showing up. As you can see, there are a great amount of space, and this specific one is the 5.5 foot box. When we look at the F-150, we've got a few different box sizes, so 3 specifically. It's going to be a 5.5, 6.5, or an 8-foot box, and the box size that's available is going to depend on the rest of the configuration. Because we're in the SuperCrew, we've got the option only for the 5.5 or the 6.5-foot box. So which way you go is going to depend on what you need, but you get into that super cab, so the 2 full-door, 2 half-door, 8-foot box, thing's a little bit of a beast. But a few things about this one as well. It doesn't have any sort of finish in the back, so it's just our base metal in the back here. But one of the cool things is that we've got the option for a number of different bed liners. So we can either do a plastic drop-in liner, or we can do a spray-in. We can either get those plastic liners from the factory, or you can do it aftermarket, and it's the same idea with the spray-in liner. My personal recommendation, if you're going for the spray-in bed liner, there are some aftermarket solutions that's about twice as thick as the factory liner. It's through a company called Linex, so it's an amazing liner that they've got, but it is great overall, regardless of which way you go. If you're going to be working with gravel and sand and all sorts of things like that, you might want to get the plastic one just for easier options for sweeping it off. But I mean, the Linex one is great, and one of the great things about that aftermarket one, that's aftermarket spray-in, it does have a lifetime warranty, which is amazing. There are a ton of different options available for aftermarket accessories for this thing. As I mentioned, we've got different options for not only the beds itself, so we can get a drop-in spray-in bed liner. You can get tonneau covers, so there's a soft, hard top, there's hard rolling, soft rolling, a lot of options. You've got bed dividers, there are stowable loading ramps, and pretty much everything in between. So depending on what you need out of your truck, there are a lot of options you can get from a time order forwarding at the factory, drop into your local Ford dealer in order to get some of those other options. But that was a quick look at the 2022 Ford Explorer XLT. What did you think? I think this thing looks kind of neat with all the flexibility it's got. Lots of different options. I love the Sport Appearance package in certain colors. It just pops even more. I want to give Formula Ford a huge shout out and a thank you for giving me access to this truck for the day. If you have any questions, drop it in the comment section below and let me know. Subscribe to the channel, and until I see you next time, take care. We do have our base controls for our for our lights, I should say. So one of the cool things is that if you're going to be using your truck specifically for